Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Post. We're glad that you are here at the Hitching Post to join us in our first kickoff of this series that will last throughout the summer and into the fall. We're so glad that you took time out of your busy schedules to join us. And in the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll be digging deeper into the grassroots beginnings of what it is like to be a member that's involved and engaged all the way from the county level to the state level and passionate about issues that impact the agriculture industry and community. So again, we hope that you can relax throughout these next few minutes with us, and we hope that you're able to take something back valuable and be ignited and have your passion be ignited more for the organization. Tonight, we just want to start with a few housekeeping items before we get rolling. For all of the participants this evening, your microphones and videos have been turned off. However, we still encourage you to engage in the conversation by using that Q&A box that's to the right of your screen. You can just click and type your questions right in that box, and we'll be happy to answer those questions and incorporate those into our conversation this evening. Additionally, if you find tonight's information valuable, or you're thinking of that member or a farmer that might benefit from hearing the conversation, we'll be recording it and providing that link for you to be able to forward to that member or revisit any of the content. So you can look for that link on Thursday of this week, both within our Farm Bureau Facebook and YouTube pages. So now that you've arrived up at the Hitching Post, you may be wondering, well, what does it entail and who's speaking with you? Well, my name is Emily Reinhart, and I work on staff at Michigan Farm Bureau for you in the Public Policy Division. And I work closely with our members on grassroots policy issues and seeing them all the way from the county level and even to the American Farm Bureau level to make sure that our members are being heard. I work closely with all of your staff that work at Michigan Farm Bureau, and it is an honor and a blessing to be able to work in the agriculture industry and for you. So this Hitching Post came about as an opportunity, yes, because of the pandemic and COVID-19, and just being able to interact with one another on a virtual landscape. So that's one of the reasons why we created the Hitching Post. Being able to get out to see members has been limited or non-existent in the past few months. So this is an opportunity to get to engage with each of you as we move forward. Also, we have a lot of different topics that are facing local communities, you on your farms, and the agriculture industry as a whole in Michigan and across the nation and world. Over the next several months, we'll be digging into topics like broadband, international trade, big data, really big topics. And we're going to be inviting other Farm Bureau staff and industry professionals and members to the table, to the Hitching Post, to chat about these different topics. We're going to be asking those questions. Well, what is the history of the topic? We're going to be diving into what resources are available right now for farmers, what's in the toolbox. And then we'll also be helping members identify next action steps that they can take to help make a difference on some of those hot topic issues. So tonight's series is our kickoff, and it's titled Grassroots Beginnings. When I think of grassroots, I think of roots that go deep and wide, right? It almost reminds you of a Vacation Bible School song, deep and wide, but those roots are what Ashley's doing it. Everyone together now. Those roots have to be there in order for anything else to grow, stand, or sustain itself. And grassroots are our members. They're the farming families across this Great Lakes state that keep this organization going and have been for over 100 years as we celebrated our centennial in 2019. So our policy development process is often referred to as the heartbeat of the organization. Farm Bureau prides itself on engaging its members at that grassroots level, letting those ideas percolate. What's on a farmer's mind? What issues are our members facing? What can we as an organization do as a unified front, as 65 County Farm Bureaus strong, from the Southern Peninsula all the way to the Upper Peninsula across the bridge? How can we have a unified front to be able to tackle really tough issues? We have lobbyists that work on our members' behalf in our state capital and also in our United States Capitol. Our policy book, which I have a handy dandy copy here. Can you imagine that, Ashley and David? Our policy book has about 100 different issues. And every year, this book is new again because members like you have the opportunity to weigh in and speak your mind at the local and state and national level, all as a unified effort of being Michigan's voice of agriculture. And that voice is from our members. Michigan Farm Bureau doesn't have a voice without the voice of our members. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our member guests that we have with us this evening. Tonight, we're pleased to have Ashley Kennedy of Huron County Farm Bureau. Welcome, Ashley. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. And we have David Dreves with Northwest Michigan Farm Bureau up in the Traverse City area. And David, it looks like you just came from work with your work polo on. Dave, yep. We're going to have you start us off this evening by introducing yourself and telling us about what you do in agriculture and your family.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I am David Dreves, live in Traverse City in Northwest County, and currently married with my wife of almost 6 years. And we have 2 kids. Caroline will be 4 in September, and Josh just turned 2 at the end of April. And I work off the farm currently with Nutrient Ag Solutions. I am a branch manager for the Bear Lake location. And in addition to that, I do sales. So I work with growers who grow cherries, apples, wine grapes, potatoes, row crops, various garden vegetables and different things like that. And then also farm with my brothers. We're currently just under about 500 acres, and then also help my dad with his operation, which is about 800 acres, and all mostly row crops, hay, oats, corn, soybeans. So.
Great. Thanks, David. So tell us a little bit about your Farm Bureau involvement as well.
So Farm Bureau, my dad, or I guess family in one way or another, has been involved for quite a while, but I didn't get really involved until we moved back home from downstate. And so I got involved just on the board as a board member, and then got interested in profile. So I did the profile program a year and a half ago, I think it was. And really enjoyed that, and that opened my eyes to a lot more of what Farm Bureau had to offer and what they do. And after going through that, became county president, and then served in 1 year, and am serving another year as a young farmer representative to the state policy development board.
Great, thank you. And Ashley, we'll turn it over to you now if you can introduce yourselves to us.
Yeah, I am Ashley Kennedy. I'm from Bad Axe, Michigan. And my husband, Eric, and I dairy farm here. We also raise feed, and we have like a beef feeder operation, birth to feeder operation. So we're quite busy. And we have 2 little girls as well. We have Callie, who's 4, and Adeline, who's 18 months. And Adeline, if you see me drinking, is the reason why I have wine tonight.
Well, she could make an appearance and say hello, or is she in bed already?
Bed. I was like, because I didn't know if Eric was going to be home from golfing yet or not. So I was like, I'm not like going to mess this up. That kid's going upstairs.
Well, Farm Bureau is a family event, so kids are welcome anytime.
Yeah, you may regret saying that if I actually brought her to something. She's kind of a little terrorist. She's sweet as pie, but she's troublesome.
So, Ashley, tell us a little bit more about your farm and your role and what you do at the County Farm Bureau level.
Yeah, so currently I'm on the board of directors for Huron County Farm Bureau. I've been involved in some facet basically since I graduated from college. So I don't know, like 11 years ago. And I started out as the communication director for the county, and now I'm the third member for our county. So I've kind of worked my way in there, and I've been involved in all kinds of stuff from P&E committee to now I've been on policy development. I was trying to actually remember how I got on policy development, and I can't even remember anymore. I'm guessing somebody asked me to be on it, and I was like, all right, I guess. Yeah. And so I've been on the policy development committee as well for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I spent like 4 years on the state dairy advisory council, or yeah, committee, whatever that is called. And so yeah, I was in profile with David a year and a half ago, and yeah, I've kind of dabbled in a bunch of different stuff, and I've just always enjoyed it. For me, left college, you go from having, if you're an extracurricular nerd, which I was, you went from having lots of things to do to all of a sudden kind of being like, wow, so I work and I have nothing else to do. So Farm Bureau kind of seemed like a natural next step.
That's great. That's good words of advice for any younger members or collegiate members that might be listening to our series, that this is a good opportunity to get involved out of college and to remain active in agriculture. So, David, Ashley had mentioned that she couldn't remember how she got involved in policy development. So we'll turn it over to you. Do you remember how your journey began in policy development?
Yeah, I actually, it was more, I think I've always kind of had an interest in it. I remember going to state annual meetings when I was a kid with my dad and being, watching the delegate session, and it always kind of intrigued me. And so my dad served on the state committee for our district. And so getting to hear stories from him, and then Mitch Bigelow, the fellow president and friend from college, served in the young farmer capacity. And just hearing about their experiences on it really, really intrigued me. So I basically volunteered for it, and luckily was able to serve in that fashion on the state board or state committee. And I mean, from a local level, it's been kind of fun to see some of the things we've come up with move on and be talked about on the delegate floor.
Great. Do you have an example of something that you've seen like developed at a county farm bureau level and then gone to the delegate floor for all of the state to vote on?
Well, I know we had one come out of our district. I can't remember what that was. It had to do with either water use or water quality, one of those two that our district had come up with. So that was kind of cool to see that move on. The one thing that really stuck in my mind was when I got to serve as a delegate before I was on the committee. And I don't remember exactly what the topic was that they were discussing, but the way the body was going to vote was basically going to be a complete 180 of where our current policy was. And so they were asking, the body was asking the committee and some of the staff, like, well, what do we do? And it was mentioned from the stage that this is yours. You do it with it what you want, and we will advocate on your behalf. So I thought that was very, very cool to see that, a lot of times you see these groups or organizations that kind of push it down from their perspective, what they want the the members to do, and this is 100% grassroots from the bottom up. Nothing happens through Farm Bureau without the approval of the members.
Yeah, that's I can just like kind of envision like those grassroots, like when you said that, the organization enables its members. It's just like we're like just watering that grass or that seed, or it's just a downpour to get those roots going, and you can just thrive from there. And you're right, it's the policy positions are farmer and member led, and the members always get it right because this is your organization, and we work together to execute that policy. So Ashley, David had mentioned some of the issues that had come up from a county level, water quality, water levels. Do you know of any issues over in the Thumb area that your county farm bureaus have been talking about, or just thinking back to your beginnings, an issue that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, I think that dairy is always a big issue. Being in Huron County, we have lots and lots of dairy cows, so we discuss dairy policy a lot. And there's several of us that on the committee that are involved in dairy one way or another. So dairy is always a big one. But also, we were one of the first areas in the state to have windmills. And so we definitely hit on the windmills a lot. If I'm not mistaken, some of our policy from our county was used originally in the state book. It's been a while, but solar panels are something really big in our area too. Just, discussing it, it's coming. So those are the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I think this year is going to be really unique, with everything that's been going on, that I think some really unique things are going to come out of all of our counties because we have some unique challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great points. And every year looks different. There's those staples of the industry like dairy or energy. But what would COVID-19 bring into play as far as an additional policy topic? Even every year is different. Yep. So this question would be open to either of you. Just being like real honest, were you ever scared to voice your opinion on something? So was there like a time where you were thinking it like something policy, or we should chat more about this, or I'm passionate about the dairy industry, and how did you overcome that barrier to just let your voice be heard?
That's a good question. So I have a natural inclination, believe it or not, I'm very extroverted, but I have a natural inclination to always think that I'm not like smart enough. I mean, I have like major imposter syndrome, which I don't know if that's a female thing, it's a young thing, or it's an everybody thing, but I've spent a lot of years like being scared to just be like, hey, I think this is a big deal and I think we should talk about this. And so for me, the biggest thing is if I have something that I'm really interested in that I want to go in and talk about, I prepare before. I try to have an idea of what I want to say. And then you have to pep talk yourself up before you walk in there. Like, especially if you're an introvert, like that's probably even more so a thing. And I find that it's easier to do it earlier the better, because then you don't have to sit there and like be thinking about it and then like chicken out by the end. Just be like, hey, or even email before and say, I want to talk about this topic, put me on the agenda, or make sure I don't forget, pretend like you're going to forget and just be like, hey, make sure I don't forget because I always forget. And, so then you have somebody holding you accountable.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love it. David, do you have any other thoughts on that? Of just any advice that you would give to members that want to have their voice be heard?
It is intimidating. It's a little scary at first, but once you do it for the first time, or the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And the biggest thing to realize is that nobody's against you. It's, we're all in this together, and we all have a similar path that we want to go down. So all the input that anybody wants to give is definitely valued. And so if you do have something that you're passionate about, definitely speak up. I don't have anything specific to policy, but I know the first little bit that I was on the board, it was a little nerve-wracking to bring up an opinion that may be different from what the board was thinking, or whatever that may be. But I've learned throughout different experiences that if you don't speak up, you're not going to be heard, and you're going to regret it going forward. So just realize that it's not as big of a deal as you may think to start out with, but it's just getting over that hump. The first time is the toughest, but once you do, it gets easier from there.
Yeah. I wonder about how many of the ideas in our policy book just started by someone being bold, like both of you, like how you just mentioned, just putting it out there and letting other people kick the tires on it and see where the idea goes from there. By someone just bringing it to the table, they may learn that everyone else around that table was thinking the same thing, or hadn't thought about that, but that's a great idea. And I wonder just think about the leaders before us in our organization in the past 100 years, members like you, David and Ashley, that had that confidence, but may have been scared right at first, just to put that idea out there and just look at how it can impact the policy book and how we advocate for the industry.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember is that in these meetings, it's not meant to be an argument. It's meant to have professional, courteous dialogue and discussion on issues. So, I've found that even if you disagree with somebody else, you can still have a discussion about it, and whether the group agrees to go with it or not. I've never left being like, wow, shouldn't have brought that idea up. I'm usually like, okay, yeah, I understand, your point of view. I get it. Okay, so we'll go this way instead of, the way I had originally thought. So keep that in mind.
Great point. So we have a question from a member, Kyle McCarty. I think he's over near you, Ashley, and he says, cheers. If you are a member, where would you start with your policy idea? Who should you talk to? And this could be for both of you. So where should you start with your policy idea, and who should you approach?
I'd start with, whether it's contacting your CAM, she can put you in touch with who your policy chairperson is for your county, and then talk to your county policy development committee, and they can help you sort through the book if there's already existing policy, if it says something a little different from what you're thinking, or you can submit it to them and tell them your thoughts on it, and then they can kind of refine it from there and then move it on up the chain to the state level.
Did you have anything to add, Ashley?
No, I think anybody on your board can help point you to whom you need to talk to, even if they're not one of the people. So, your CAM, your board, or if you know somebody on the policy development committee, that's what our job is to take ideas and to bring them to the group. Even if they're not our ideas, we can still bring them to the group.
There's Miss Callie. Yes. So great question, Kyle. And we should let you know that grassroots process, those ideas start locally. They are put forward at your county Farm Bureau annual meeting. They're on at the County Farm Bureau annual meeting, and then they're sent to the State Policy Development Committee, which David sits on and is comprised of 21 farmer members. And they look at 800 different resolutions on any given year. So there's about 800 different resolutions that come in from 65 county farm bureaus. Many of them might say similar things. Some years we have topics that are polar opposite, and we have some county farm bureaus supporting an issue and others saying opposition. And it's the job of that State Policy Development Committee to look at all different sides of the issue and to prepare a report for the delegates at our state annual meeting, which happens at the beginning of December. And it's up to the delegates then to decide if it's yay or nay. Did the State Policy Development Committee get it right? Maybe they did, and maybe they didn't. But at the end of the day, there's a unified voice that delivers that product of what that final product is for the year. Let's see, and if there's any questions, we have about 10 minutes left. So we do appreciate the interaction. Please keep the questions coming. So this year in agriculture has been tough. And I think we've had a couple really hard years. And farmers are needing to be resilient. I mean, we know we're resilient and we know that our members are resilient, but we're faced with some really unique challenges. I would open up the question to both of you. What do you think will be some of the hot topics that will be brought forward within policy development? You know, we often think of, you know, what are our farmers hearing at the coffee shop? And those are the issues that we often see come through that grassroots process. So we can't go to the coffee shop, but we're here at the Hitching Post. So talk to us a little bit about what issues are facing agriculture and what you think we'll see through the policy development process.
I think from a dairy point of view, I think a lot of things are going to change. I think that, you know, the last 5 years have kind of been a nail in the coffin for the dairy industry. And this, you know, really could destroy a lot of people. And so I think you're going to see dairy farmers looking very seriously at how to innovate, how to change our processing, how things work through the government, all of those kinds of things. Checkoff has already started working on some of this stuff, but it's a little too late. But it is the perfect time to be having these discussions. So I think, you know, on a national level, state level, local level, a lot of things are going to change. I think it's going to be really interesting to see like where dairy comes out at. I mean, everybody, this has been really hard. But I think dairy was in a little bit of a different position than a lot of the other commodities. So yeah, I think we're going to see some things change here.
One of the ones that I see continuing to be talked about, I don't deal with it in depth or in person, but I work with a lot of my customers that deal with it, is the labor side of things and what that cost structure is going to look like on how they're being paid, and then everything that's being involved in getting them here and those processes. And then especially now with what's happened already this year, how does that possibly change with health and the safety of the nation involved with that when people are coming into the country? What do those steps look like and things like that? So labor definitely is one that's been talked about for a long time, and is continued to be talked about. So.
Those are really, really good points. And the topics that you mentioned are really tough. They are a heavy lift, all the way just from at a farm level and all the way to a national and international level. So just knowing that your voice counts and your voice is that grassroots strength of the organization, and being at the table on these heavy issues is important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, being involved in a dairy checkoff project, you know, looking at these things. I was doing this project and they're talking about these things like an international pandemic and people going into grocery stores and there not being food there. And I was like, this is wild. Like, sure, this could happen, but I'm probably never going to see this. And then literally these things are happening. And so it just really proved to me that, you know, all the voices that we can get involved in this are really important in all of these issues, you know, labor, like whatever, energy, you know, climate, whatever it is that you're interested in, all of us having a voice and thinking that these things are important could maybe in the future help put us in a much better position when we're in these same situations. Or, you know, we can hopefully help to make the labor situation better, or, you know, whatever. Insert whatever your issue is that you're interested in. And all of us having a voice in it is really important.
Definitely. So, David, I'm wondering, you had mentioned your dad, that you had kind of grew up on the delegate farm, that you've grown up in a Farm Bureau family, and I'm wondering, how does the organization, how do we involve all of the different commodities? And being the second most diverse agricultural state in the nation, and different generations of farmers and beginning farmers, or different parts of the state, different needs. David, can you help shed some light on how we work together in that capacity?
I think, like you mentioned, it's starting with the Young Farmer Program. I mean, Farm Bureau in general is very family focused, and you see it at all the meetings where people are, you know, you're allowed to bring your kids and have them involved in some form. And then, you know, being able to start off young adults in the I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but starting them off in Farm Bureau and showing them everything that we're about, and giving them the opportunities to have a voice, you know, when they're 18. You don't see that with a lot of other organizations. And the other, you know, like you mentioned with the diversity, we're not specific to one thing. So you have, of course, you have, you know, dairy groups and apple and fruit in general, and you know, whether it's animal agriculture, whatever that may be, floriculture. The great thing about Farm Bureau is it brings everybody together. So the one great thing is sometimes we have Farm Bureau members that sit on those boards that can bring a voice to Farm Bureau to say, well, this is what the apple industry is needing, or this is what the dairy industry is needing, and then allows us to shape everything together to work for everybody. And it's very, very cool to see that. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
Yeah, definitely. When I think about the 100 different policies within our policy book, I mean, we have everything. We have the whole gamut of the alphabet, and everything that touches all of the commodities, um, or even roads. I mean, our organization 100 years ago, you know, we were worried about roads, and we're still worried about roads today. So you're right, the diversity of the industry, and just topics that just they're long lasting, and involvement from all generations of farmers and beginning farmers, different types of production methods, the East Coast to the West Coast, the cities. We serve everyone. So as our time wraps up, I have just one more question for both of you. As farmers, I mean, I grew up on a farm, and I know that my dad reads farm magazines and is on the internet looking up different issues all the time. I mean, he could come in from a long day in the combine, but he'll still sit down and read a farm magazine. So as we talk about the hitching post and just getting together and chatting about ideas that our industry faces, where do both of you read about different topics? How do you get your information, and how do you know it's credible? Can you just chat about how you stay up to date on hot topics facing the ag community and industry? Ashley, let's
100% Facebook. That's where I get all my information.
Especially once we're blinked out and said we found that this isn't factual information. Yeah.
Right. No, I try to, whether it's the local newspaper, I get the same thing, Successful Farming and Michigan Farm News, a lot of the trying to stay up to date in the industry. So fruit grower news, vegetable grower news, all those kinds of things. So it's very, very tough now to decipher what is factual and what's not. So in anything, you just got to try to use your best judgment. And if this has been a reputable, trusted source for a long time, then you put a little bit more faith in that instead of reading, something that your neighbor posted on Facebook that you got from wherever. You have no idea. So just trying to stay with credible sources. I get emails, Michigan Farm News. So those are a lot of articles in there that are very helpful, and you just do your best to weed through what you think is factual and what's not.
How about you, Ashley?
Yeah, so I also, a lot of times articles that are online, I stick to the traditional reputable sources because again, like sometimes that stuff can be such a crapshoot and you just don't really know what you're getting. So I stick to, the FarmJournal, Successful Farming, Farm Bureaus, kind of if I'm reading something. If I'm, online actually like looking at people, I make sure that again, like it's a farmer that I trust, a farmer that I know their background. I don't just believe every farmer who has an opinion. And if I'm not sure, then I try to find some other farmers from that same area so that I can be like kind of fact check. I also listen to podcasts. So I listen to AgriTalk is one that I like. I listen to like the Progressive Dairy podcast. Those are, again, pretty trustworthy, reputable sources kind of a thing. And then I listen to lots of economic podcasts in general. Lots of them actually do cover agriculture topics occasionally. So that's really interesting. Planet Money and The Indicator by Planet Money are both really good, and they do touch on agriculture probably more than what you'd think they do. And so yeah, I just look for trustworthy, reputable sources. Yeah, and sometimes you just have to kind of trust your gut. If you're like, this kind of seems sketchy, I don't know. And if I'm not sure, then I research some more. And if that's the only place saying that, or the only places that are saying that are all linking back to the same link, then it's probably not trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points, both of you. It's important to be wise out there when we're getting information about different topics, and always we're always educating ourselves as agriculturists, and that goes for any age member, collegiate, all the way to next generation. It's important to stay educated and to keep that passion going for learning and reading and listening about different topics. And that's what we hope that we're providing here on the Hitching Post, is an opportunity for everyone to come around and to hear about different topics. We're going to be inviting different experts in that can provide different sides and different viewpoints, and help link it back to Farm Bureau policy and what can our members do to take action in their local communities and make an impact even bigger. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of different topics coming up. I guess David or Ashley, do either of you have a topic that you're looking forward to for the upcoming Hitching Posts?
I might be biased because he's my friend, but I'm always up for international trade with John Grant.
Nice.
I'm sure he'll love me for saying that too.
How about you, David?
I'd mention probably the same thing. In our area with tart cherries, that's a huge issue right now. And then also with just in general on the row crop side with corn and soybeans with China and everything that's going on there. It's going to be a big debate and talk soon.
Yeah. Well, international trade, well, we'll have to have you both on and get some information on that one. We'll have to share with John Cran that you're setting the bar high there, Ashley.
We'll whip them into shape.
Yes, keep our staff on our toes. That's for sure. We're here for you. Well, Ashley and David, we just want to thank you so much for joining us at our first edition of the Hitching Post, and for joining us this evening and for sharing your story about your beginnings, and just really great advice for maybe a new member or somebody that's been a member for quite a while, but is maybe just looking to ignite that passion for policy development and hot topics. Thank you very much to both of you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. So our next Hitching Post series will be next Tuesday at 7 p.m. You can register for that series, and it will be on rural economic stability. So talking about local economies and economic stability, excuse me. So we'll be joining up with other Farm Bureau staff members and guests throughout the next several months. So make sure to stay informed about how to register for those links, and be sure to join us. Again, this will be recorded, so if you want to share it with anyone, please feel free to do so. We encourage you to do that. It'll be available Thursday on Facebook and also our YouTube channel. We'd also like to encourage you to fill out the survey that you will get in your email right when this meeting ends. There will be just a quick survey for you to fill out and tell us some of your thoughts. With that, we hope that you have a nice rest of the evening and a good rest of the week. Stay safe out there as you're finishing up planting and serving agriculture and your communities. Thanks again, Ashley and David.